What's up, people? I am back for another video. Sorry I didn't do this video yesterday. Today we are reviewing Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. And man, this movie, I'm not gonna lie, rewatching this last night, it kind of brought me back. Because this is one of those, I watched a lot as a kid. I went through a lot of those old Christopher Reeve movies. I would watch them on loop. Because at the time, Superman Returns hadn't come out yet. Which that was shit anyway, but there wasn't a lot of Superman movies, so I watched a lot of those on repeat, and I'll admit, this one was one, and I liked it at the time, but man, it is not good. It is... Yeah, it is not a good movie. Obviously, making a fake villain like Nuclear Man, who's not a real villain, who's nothing to do with the comics, he's not a real villain. He's a fake villain. And the fact that Gene Hackman basically just dubbed his voice badly, by the way. It's like a bad dub. You could tell it's Gene Hackman. They didn't even try. That fight in the end between Superman and Nuclear Man is one of the most ridiculous looking fights I have ever seen. Oh my god. The random powers Superman got added in, he had all of a sudden could randomly, because Nuclear Man took down the Great Wall of China. And Superman rebuilt it by, telepathically, putting the bricks together. It was what the fuck? When was that a thing? So a lot of the shots of Superman flying look really bad. You could tell, they're really badly edited. Because even in, some of the... I would even say the third one. Even up until, the third one. The flying scenes look decent for the time. But in this, they look bad. You could clearly tell they were filmed somewhere else and I don't know, man. And the whole plot with him dealing with nukes is stupid, too. Superman just going to the UN and just giving a speech saying, I'm going to get rid of all nuclear weapons and go into your countries and take all your nukes. And all the countries just clapping for it makes no sense. I'm you're just going to come in and take it. Wouldn't that be an act of war? I feel like all those countries would be no, you're not going to just do that. Even if he is Superman. Countries would just let him just come in. Just take all their nukes. How that would work. And I will say there's some okay stuff. It was cool that they kind of wanted to see Superman fight something again, but it's I don't know if they just did not put any work into the choreography. I don't know. I don't know if they weren't even thinking about it when they were making this. Because the fight scenes in this movie are just ridiculous, man. That moon fight is it looks like just drunk dudes fighting. Just that can fly. And then there's a part in it where, because Superman has David Warfield, who's buying the Daily Planet. His daughter Clark, she has a thing for Clark, and you see her throughout the movie. Her whole role is literally just to get to this end point where Nuclear Man, I guess, sees her on a newspaper and for some reason gets infatuated with her. Not explained. I don't know if there's some cut footage where maybe he sees her earlier in the movie and is fascinated, but I don't think so. Because even in the cut of this one, he looks at a paper, sees her face there, and is infatuated. Causes havoc until, he basically says, until Superman brings the woman to him, he's just gonna cause havoc, and it's ridiculous, that whole sequence. He starts levitating people, which makes no sense. He's supposed to be a nuclear man. The fuck is he levitating people? And then there's a point, I'm not gonna lie, no disrespect to Christopher Reeve, but man, there's a line where he delivers in this. It is, I'm not gonna lie, the delivery, every time I have watched it, it kills me the way he delivers his line. Stop! Don't do it! The people! It kills me every time. It's like, oh god, I don't know if it's him. I don't know. I don't know. I like the opening scene when he saves like a Russian space station. That was kind of cool, you know, or the scene where he stops like a speeding train in the beginning, and it was cool to have Lois back. Granted, it doesn't make it kind of the way they set it up. It's clear she knows Clark's Superman because there's a scene because he gets a letter from this kid because it's for Superman, and she gives it to Clark. Clearly, she knows he's Superman, even though the second movie, at least if we're going from the Lester cut, he does the kiss that makes her erase her mind. And obviously, it's not addressed in the third movie because she's barely in it. So between the second, after the second, and the third and the fourth movie, between the third and fourth movie, she remembers again he's Superman because he goes. Because even in the end, when there's a scene where Superman's like sick and Lois like pumps him up, basically, she essentially there. She could tell it's Clark. She knows Clark's Superman. So I'm assuming maybe this goes from the Donner cut. Maybe that's what this goes from. I don't know if maybe that's what they were working off of Superman 2, and maybe because in that she does find out he's Superman, so maybe and there was no kiss. They do the time thing, but wouldn't even then though wouldn't that still kind of erase because none of it would hex he went back in time, but I don't know. None of it makes sense. So whatever. Yeah, so Lex Luthor wants to destroy Superman, so this is how he makes a deal with these, like, I think Russian leaders or whatever. Black Ark. He makes a deal with a black market dealers, and basically, if they put their plan is to put a rocket, get a piece of Superman's DNA because they took like his hair and a couple other things and mix it, and that's how Nuclear Man is born because Superman throws it in the moon, not the moon, the sun. Which then that's how Nuclear Man's made, and my god, the CGI. And you gotta remember, this came out the same year as Predator. This was 1987. You had Predator, you had Lost Boys, you had fucking Beverly Hills Cop 2, like a lot of big iconic movies in 87. And then this came out. Oh, what else? You know what else came out in 87? Another bad fourth film in Jaws 4. So a couple year bad fourth films. Man, I will say it was kind of John Cryer as Lex's nephew, Lenny, was kind of funny. But yeah, man, I can have fun with this. Like, I can watch this as a meme. Like, if I'm high or drunk, maybe I could like watch it or roast it. But it is objectively not a good movie. The fights are bad. There's no point of David Warfield. He's just there really for the big scene in the beginning when he talks about he's buying the Daily Planet. 'Cause he's not really in the movie after that. Not really. You kind of will randomly be there. There's a scene when he kidnaps a daughter. I think he's there, but that's it. He's just randomly plopped throughout the movie. You kind of see his daughter more than you see him. Lex, obviously, I have the same problems. I do think, I will say, they dialed it back a little bit on I don't feel like he's as much of a bumbling goof compared to the other two movies. That's the one thing that's freaking weird. I'm complimenting this movie, but I do feel like they dialed it a little bit back the corner. Because I will say, the interaction between Superman and and Lex before Superman fights Nuclear Man, I actually liked the back and forth between Superman and Lex. It was like, of the movies, I'm like, okay, kind of feel a little bit of Lex in there. Because I think Gene Hackman, I've always said, I think he could have played the actual Lex Luthor from the comics if they let him. But no, they went with this bumbling, rich, dumb gimmick. So, and that's just what they went with. So, I can at least say in this, he didn't feel that as much. Same with, like, his Clark in this compared to the Clark from the other movies. I'm going to say it. Christopher Reeve's Clark, I felt like they went way too bumbling in the other two movies. I like that. I would say in Superman 3 and in this one, his Clark doesn't feel like a bumbling goof. He actually feels like normal Clark. You know, so those parts of the movie I actually like. So there's some good stuff here. It's just surrounded by a lot of shit, a lot of bad CGI. There's a moment where Nuclear Man takes Lacey, I think is the daughter's name. Lacey, or yes, Lacey. Takes Lacey. He takes her up in space. For some reason, she doesn't fucking explode, even though like he takes her up in space, and she somehow doesn't explode. And then, if you remember, Superman moves the fucking moon to block the sun, which reality, that would fucking fuck up everything. There would be a lot of fuck ups. The aftermath would be pretty catastrophic if that were to happen. So Superman just does that. Okay, so there's that part of it. You have this lady floating in space, somehow still alive, breathing in space, somehow still alive, and because when he blocks the sun, like Nuclear Man, like because his weakness basically is if you block the sun, he depowers essentially. And Superman manages to bring her back down to Earth, even though when the flying into the planet, there's a lot of questions. Into orbit, like realistically, the moment you leave orbit into space, she would be dead. She would probably be bursting into flames too, but anyway, because how fast you'd have to be coming in. But anyway, this movie is bad, but I can have fun with it. It's like, in a way, it's kind of like Batman and Robin a little bit in that sense, where I could watch it and roast it. It's bad, but I could watch it and roast it. I mean, I'll take this film over, I'm going to say it, Batman and Robin. I mean, not Batman and Robin, Batman Forever. Batman and Robin and this are kind of about the same. It's better than Superman Returns. Definitely better than Superman Returns. I'll watch this over Superman Returns any day, because at least this was memeable. This didn't put me to sleep. And man, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I'm very much dreading Superman Returns, because that was not good. And it's not Brandon Routh's fault, because I actually think if they let him... Because I even did a way they could do a fixing of that movie a long-ass time ago, where basically, if they just did the game, because there was a game for it, and Lex was the bad guy, but he also had Metallo. Like, if you just did that and Superman, you went its own direction, you didn't try to tie it into the Donner movies, I think it would have did better. But they tried to force the Donner connection. Kate Bosworth is a terrible Lois. She's probably my least favorite Lois, like, live action. Probably not just live action, just in general, she's my least favorite Lois. She is fucking shit. I thought she was too young looking. The way she played the character was just off-putting. That movie all around just falls flat. Kevin Spacey, whatever you think of him, I think he could have been a good Lex, same deal, if they just didn't have him try to basically just be Hackman's Lex. And in a way, it's like a Force Awakens situation where it almost does just feel like it's a bad remake of Superman 1. Because you even have like a similar, you're safer flying kind of scene, where instead of the plane, it's a plane instead of a helicopter, but it's kind of a similar sequence. It's paced similarly. The moment where he gets the kryptonite necklace. Instead of a necklace, it's the island, and I think, that was a scene where Lex, shanks Superman with, a kryptonite little knife, essentially. Or, a pieces of kryptonite, but he uses that as a knife. So it's alright, it's kind of the same thing. And then, he doesn't fly around the Earth, but he does something in the end that's kind of like that, or the equivalent of that. So I'm not really looking forward to Superman Returns, man. I like the suit, and Brandon Routh I think could have been good if they let him do his own thing, but no. So I'll be talking about that next Friday. I'm gonna try to do that on Friday though, but yeah. Tomorrow I should be reviewing How to Train Your Dragon 2 tomorrow, but we'll see. I gotta see how things go. If not, I'll be back Monday. But, yeah. Let's, Pin Down Podcast for sure will be back this week. We're gonna be recording something on Thursday. We should be recording something on Thursday for the channel. So, subscribe. Link will be in the description. Let's, get into Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. I will say it too. I didn't mind the music. The one thing that honestly, even the last two Reed films, I will say the score. Well, not as good as the first two because the score in the first two movies were straight, clearly John Williams. So the score for those films are gonna hit a little differently, whereas the scores in Superman 3 and 4, it's the same. Like it's supposed to be a version. It's like when they changed John Carpenter's Halloween theme every Halloween sequel, same song but as a different composer. They kind of did that here, where it's still the John Williams score, but they switch it around and obviously change the pitch and it's a different composer. But I will say, even in these movies, the score still hits. Like, I'm not gonna lie, like when the movies go off, I actually just let the credits play and just listen to that score because I still love that score. So, I guess out of 10, objectively, I gotta be honest, probably a 4, but I'll give it a 5, just because it does have that meme factor, and I do think it's a little bit better than 3. I'm just gonna be real. There's an aspect about it's better than 3. At least we do see him throw a punch in this movie, even if it's a bad looking punch, and I am gonna get into that final fight. Even when they first fight, they just like go at each other, and you got Nuclear Man with his fucking long nails, and then they just fall off the building, just grabbing at each other. I'm like, oh my god. Oh, yeah. But, like I said, it's not the worst thing ever. Compared to a lot of, like I said, compared to Returns, this is fucking Shakespeare. So, at least we're going to be doing Man of Steel soon. I can't wait for that, honestly. So, but anyway, the movie opens up. You get the cool credits. Superman saves a crew of a Russian space station. He finds a capsule on Earth. This is where I do like we get a little quick scene at the at the farm, the Kent farm, which that was cool. Granted, it's only for like a quick second. He finds a green Kryptonian module, which is like, I think it's basically a recording left by his mother. And this is where we get a quick scene of him saving a train, because the driver, I think he got a heart attack, and then they were gonna crash, but then Superman managed to stop the train. And I will say the one thing, another critic, I do not like the suit in this movie. For some reason, I don't know if they used a different suit, because I don't know if all the movie, at least Superman 1 and 2, I think those are the same suit. But Superman 3, maybe the suit's a slightly different. Like, I think maybe the cape, I think the cape's probably a brighter red in Superman 3. I think that's one thing I noticed, is how brighter the red is. But largely the suit still looks the same, like the regular suit. The suit in this, for some reason, is very fucking bright blue, and it looks ugly. It didn't look terrible in this scene, like the scene where he's stops the train. I think partially because the way that scene was shot, it wasn't uber bright and they weren't outside. So it still made the blue look a little bit decent. It wasn't dark blue, but like the blue looks normal blue in the first 3 films. Not like dark blue or light blue, like just normal blue. Like the middle, kind of. Just like your normal, just average blue. But for some reason, in like, especially in the light, when you see it in like the day scenes, the suit is like bright blue, and it just looks ugly. Even as a kid, I was a bit nicer to the movie as a kid, Oh, it's Superman. But I'm like, even as a kid, I'm like, why is this suit so bright blue? Like, the red is fine, but it's like the suit for some reason is like bright blue, and it's an eyesore. Especially compared to the other 3 films. I'm like, did he change his suit? Did his mom knit him another suit and it's just brighter blue? I don't get it. And but after that, this is where he meets Sam, David, the actor's name, Sam, that's why. David Warfield, and like I said, his character is just a owner of a cheesy tabloid who he feels like Daily Planet doesn't make any more money. He's essentially saying he wants Daily Planet to go more like the tabloids and be less about story and just about getting the views. It's equivalent of like if this was nowadays, it'd be about just getting the views instead of facts, right? And this is where we meet Lacey, who starts having a crush on Clark, and this is where we do see a scene of him going to this Fortress of Solitude. Obviously, they don't show you him flying there. He's just already there. You could tell they had a much smaller budget. That's why, like, probably they did. There's not a lot of scenes. There's a lot of reused scenes. This is another thing I didn't point out yet. Haven't pointed out yet. There's a lot of reused scenes of him flying. There's like a certain shot of him, like when he flies, like coming at the camera. There's that. You see that shot a million times. You will notice it. You will, like, they straight up reuse it several times. Which, nothing wrong with that. At least for a film like this. This was 87, so I'm giving it a bit of a pass, but man, you do see it a lot. Like, that certain shot where he's coming into frame, like, at you, they use that shot a lot. And obviously, you know the ending where he always flies into space? You could tell they just reused that footage from the first one. And granted, it worked for the second movie, because in the second movie, first and second movie, the suit and his look doesn't look that much different. Obviously, in 3, he has a different haircut. I think the cape is a bit brighter red, or they just had a better cameras, because came out a couple years later, so maybe the cameras are a bit better. But either that or the cape was a brighter red, but largely the suit still looked relatively similar. So that's why, like, you notice they do probably reuse that shot of him flying into space. It worked for the other 3 because he relatively looked the same. It's an eyesore in this one because how different his suit looks, and then he goes into that, I'm like, that's Superman. Because, you know, when he flies into frame again, it's the darker or regular blue suit. It's all around, this movie is just, there's a lot wrong with it. It was cool we got a little bit of stuff with Krypton, but it was few and far between. Like, we see him in his Fortress of Solitude for like a second, because he's trying to figure out what to do about this arms race. The scene where they all go betrayed always killed me. Because there's a kid who wrote him a letter about I will say this, other criticism, there's a lot in this video. I'm not going to call it a rant, though. It'll just be a review. I don't really love as a kid, it didn't bother me because I wasn't thinking about that, but this movie is a straight up, like, anti, nuke movie. Like, the amount of, like, guys, nuke's bad. They, like, beat it in your head repeatedly. Nuke's bad, nuke's bad, nuke's bad, nuke's bad, nuke's bad. And obviously, whatever you think about nukes is whatever you think about nukes, but it is so on the nose. They, like, don't even hide it. It is, like, every scene, it just feels like it's a PSA. It's like, PSA, kids, nuke's bad. So he agrees to help and get rid of the nukes. So this is where he goes to the United Nations, which I'll admit, when he flies and he says hi to the kid, and he's, you know, walking with Jimmy, I'll admit, that's a good scene. Everybody starts following him. That I do like. There's moments like that. Like, that's where I'm like, the one thing in these movies, even the bad ones, Christopher Reeve performance really carries it. He really was Superman of that time. You know, and I know this is gonna be a bit of a hot take. I do prefer Cavill's more because I do think that's more closer to the comic slash. My favorite version of Superman is the animated series slash comics of Superman, where he is a symbol of hope, but he does have a bit of, like, there's a bit of a flawedness to him. He's not just, you know, Superman of the 70s and this Donner era, he was more perfect, saving cats off trees, and obviously because of the budget, you can't just have him do crazy shit, have crazy fights with, like, the bigger scale villains, right? I prefer that Superman from the comics and the animated series because to me, that's Superman. I like, yeah, he saves cats, he saves people from, when they're falling off a building and stuff like that. But I also do understand there's a bigger role with Superman because he could fly, and you're dealing with characters like Darkseid, Brainiac, Bizarro, Metallo, like all these villains. Mongol, I'll throw him in there. Doomsday, where they deal with powers, because obviously the power scaling is going to be a bit different because they're superpowered beings. I want to see that aspect of Superman. So that's why I do prefer Henry Cavill's take a little bit, but I understand why everybody loves Christopher Reeve because he really nails. He was the perfect Superman for this era. That like late '70s to '80s era. That was the perfect Superman because that was that Silver Age Superman. Because Superman was like that in the comics. He was in a way he kind of was a walk. In a, I'm not even saying that's as a bad thing. I'm just saying in a way he was kind of like a walking PSA, but in a good way. Telling kids, eat your vitamins. It's kind of like what Hulk Hogan did, right? Eat your vitamins, do the right thing. Drugs bad. Um, he's saving cats off trees. He's smiling. That's the Superman people liked, and I understand why a lot of people gravitated. I love that version of Superman. I just think there's nothing wrong with showing a Superman a little bit flawed, and having an edge sometimes. But I really do, I really do think this scene kind of shows it. But granted, it goes stupid when he's like, I'm gonna fly into your countries and just take your nukes. I'm like, and they all just cheer. I'm like, that would not fucking happen. That's not how that works. You don't just fly in and just take all your nukes. That's like especially an alien. Like, let's just be real here. It's an alien. And I know we all love Superman, but still, an alien's like, I'm gonna come and take all your nukes and just throw them into the sun. Like, okay, we all cheer. It's like, I'm not gonna lie, this criticism I got more later in life. I wasn't thinking about this as a kid. Oh, okay, this is just this. I was just like, okay, I'm just waiting to see him do Superman stuff. That's how I saw it. But the more I thought about that, I'm like, yeah, this would not happen. But whatever. It's not like a big criticism. Like, it's just like more of you can't not point it out. So Lex Luthor gets broken out by his. Oh, I forgot to mention that. I think that was like in the start of the movie. He gets broken out by his nephew Lenny, who I'll admit he was kind of funny. Like some of the slapstick stuff works. I will say between this and 3, they do kind of make the slapstick work. It's bad. Like it is a lot. There are slapsticky moments, especially in these last two. Like Superman 1 and 2, I think there were moments, but I feel like they didn't go too far into slapstick. 3 and 4. 3, I think, way more, obviously, because that had Richard Pryor, and of course, so they're going to lean more into the comic. But I feel like even this one had a bit of that, especially with Lenny. When this I'll even jump ahead a little bit. When Nuclear Man's there and Nuclear Man levitates Lenny, he's like, oh no. I'll admit that was kind of funny. It's a young John Cryer, if you remember him from 2.5 Men. So they make a deal with arms dealers because the arms dealers now Superman getting rid of the nukes. Obviously, that's gonna affect their plans. And once again, I'm my issue too with Hackman's Lex, and I pointed this out, but it's just I have to keep playing it out. I don't like how over the top bad he is. I don't think it's as bad as this one compared to the other 3 appearances he's in. You almost could say 4, because let's be real, Russ Webster was Lex Luthor. I think that clearly was supposed to be Lex. I bet in the original script that was gonna be Lex, but something happened to where maybe Gene Hackman couldn't do it, so they rewrote him. But that was clearly supposed to be Lex. I think that was gonna probably be Lex Luthor. He would have somehow got out of jail, and probably somehow got with fucking. Oh no, not Russ Webster. That's fucking. That's Pryor's character. I meant to say the villain in that, the rich dude. That was probably gonna be fucking Lex. It just, there's no way. So that was my problem is how over the top bad they go with Hackman, the way he plays it. Like, he'll say things, that's a villain of mine of mine. I'm like, I don't like when Lex says, I don't like when he calls himself a villain unironically. Because in the actual comics, Lex doesn't think of himself as a villain. He wouldn't just unironically call himself a villain. Granted, there are comics like later on where he does kind of embrace it, but even then, still think it's, I don't love when he's unironically just calling himself a villain and just, it's like, I like when he hides it, you know? I think that just makes for better storytelling, and that's what makes Lex effective. But fine, it's the 80s, it's the re-films. At this point, it's the fourth one. You just kind of got to accept it. They're not going to change at this point. So they attach Superman's hair to a missile because they know in his DNA to a missile. They launch it. Superman grabs it, throws it into the sun. This is where Nuclear Man is born. And my God, the actor for Nuclear Man just like he looks like Mark Pillow. I don't know if he's an actor because Hackman, he doesn't talk because Hackman's voice is the one who, when you hear Nuclear Man talk, it's Hackman's voice. They don't even hide it. I mean, at least it makes sense because Lex built it, so you can at least justify, okay, maybe that's why it would sound like him. Because they even, Lex, when he stalking him, he even mentions it, so at least they address it. And this is the scene where he shows his power, so yeah, he can levitate things for some reason. The sub being powered by the sun and having the nuclear related powers and radiation. And yeah, his claws can or nails, but I'm just gonna call them claws, can penetrate Superman's skin because there's a scene he scratches Superman and he gets sick. Basically, it's ridiculous, honestly. Think about it. Just scratches him and Superman's just sick for like a little bit and then he comes back. He gets the crystal and it basically gives him the power back. Essentially, it makes him not sick. But Nuclear Man is ridiculous. I'm just saying, guys, he's not a villain from the comics. Never has made he's obviously never made an appearance from the comics. There are villains who obviously aren't from the comics who eventually become like an establishment. Happened with Harley, so it can happen, but not in this case, obviously, because Nuclear Man was never mentioned again after this movie. It was only for this movie. So, and this is where, while on a date, because they were supposed to have a double date, Lois is on a date with Superman, while Lacey, I guess all of a sudden her and Lois are like friends now, which just feels very forced considering this lady just came in and pushed herself into your life. All of a sudden you're friends now, but okay, just because plot. And I'll admit, there's some funny scenes where Superman and Clark, he has to go back and forth between Superman and Clark. So he has to cause some kind of distraction and go back and forth, which I thought that stuff was funny. Then Lex does like what a dog whistle does. He makes a sound that only Superman can hear, draws over Superman, and this is where we get the start of the fight. And man, I'll admit, I do like the part where Lex and Superman are having their little back and forth before the fight. I actually really do enjoy it. This is actually, I hate to say it, no, I like their first meeting in the first movie. But between this scene and then that scene and this scene, those are probably like my two favorite interactions between Hackman's Lex and Reeve. I wish they had better interactions after that, though, because a lot of the time the other interactions are him basically taking Lex to jail and foiling Lex's plan every time. Very cartoony. I may make that a video one day. I want to see a real Lex Luthor adapted, because we've never had an actual Lex Luthor adapted live action. I am not counting Michael Rosenbaum. I am sorry, because Smallville is a prequel. I am talking about Lex Luthor with an actual Superman who's in a suit and doing the normal Superman stuff. We have not had an actual Lex Luthor live action. There's so many opportunities, hate to say it, I thought Eisenberg, there was moments. I wish they just how he looked by the Snyder cut. I wish he just looked like that if he looked like that in BVS, I think I think people would have been far more receptive as Lex, and I think we could have had a much more comic-y Lex Luthor. But you could have did it back in '06, but no, you decided that we got to have him be a continuation of Hackman's Lex, and obviously, I'll give it a pass somewhat because it was the time, and at the time, a lot of villains in these kind of movies are gonna be a bit more cartoony. They didn't. I think at the time, still they saw comic books as still cartoony. It wasn't because this was still 2 years before Batman '89, so I guess they still didn't really take comic book stuff like that seriously. So maybe they thought, oh, this is goofy comic stuff. So we could just have the villain just be very cartoony. He's dastardly, but then gets beat. Like, obviously, there's no real, real adversity. Because Nuclear Man scratches Superman's neck, but it's not really any... Even watching it again, I didn't really feel like Superman was a really real danger. The one scene where he gets scratched, like, okay. So they fight... And, man, the amount of times, like I said, this is the moment where you'll really notice the amount of times they reuse Superman flying shots. There's a bunch of them, because they're chasing each other. But there's going to be a lot of moments where they're just going to reuse a shot. Nuclear Man can, use ice. He goes to Italy, causes, I think it's Vesuvius, or a volcano. And Superman has to stop the volcano, which that stuff is cool. Or when he stops the Statue of Liberty, because Nuclear Man takes the Statue of Liberty and is about to drop it in the city. Superman saves, and this is where we get the scene where Nuclear Man, because this is before that, he in space, he opened his hand, and that's when the nails came up and became claws. Scratch Superman's neck at this point when he was dropping off the Statue of Liberty. Superman gets sick, radiation sickness. And this is where we have Lois kind of gives him a pep talk while Nuclear Man wants, I think there's a scene where Lex is gloating about Superman being dead essentially, or beaten. And Lois kind of gives Clark a pep talk, and he looks all old. He's about to die, but then he gets the Kryptonian energy module, and it heals him. And that's when Nuclear Man wants Lacey for some reason. I personally, now I'm thinking, because there's a lot of cut footage, I think he even mentions up here, that there's 45 minutes of the film cut or something. Yeah. 45 minutes of footage that got lost. So I'm starting to think that probably in that footage there's a scene where Nuclear Man sees her and he gets enticed before this scene, because it's so forced. It's he just sees her on a paper and is just attracted to her, and then he flies and starts causing mayhem in Metropolis, and some of Nuclear Man's powers once again make no sense. The scenes where he's using his nuclear powers is kind of cool. But then there's moments it just gets really ridiculous with the fucking... He's levitating people, and it just doesn't really make any sense. And this is where you do get, I'm going to say it, some funny Christopher Reeve line delivery. Stop! Don't do it! The people! Alright, I'll take you to her. I'll take you to her. The way he says it, it's I'm not going to lie, it has me dead every time I watch it. So he locks Nuclear Man into an elevator. Destroys the power, so the Nuclear Man's depowered because there's no sun. He takes the elevator, flies it up, and it was kind of cool. The scene's done well. He got the music playing, and he drops it on the moon. And I do love when he stands up the flag straight. I love those moments, when because that's Superman. I'll admit that stuff is Superman to me, because he is about the American way. There's nothing wrong with it. And he still cares about the other part of the world. But fundamentally, he is about the American way. There's nothing wrong with that. He is always he's always kind of like that in a vigilant way. He kind of become DC's Captain America. He came before Captain America, but obviously they definitely lean much more into the patriotism around when Cap came in. So I don't think that's a bad thing. That's Superman. But yeah, so we get a fight between him and Nuclear Man on the moon, and my god, fuck, they look like two drunk dads fighting. It's so bad. It's so funny though, like the way they're just grabbing it, and then all of a sudden, Nuclear Man's making these weird roars, like when he's like, there's a scene where he's like just mashing Superman into the moon, and he's making this weird like snarling roar sound. Like what? Why did he all of a sudden just turn into a creature? He's not talking. He basically drives him into the surface of the moon while he goes and gets Lacey. Laser into space. Somehow, Lacey is not fucking dead. Like, she doesn't. Like, she doesn't, like, just. Her head doesn't just kaboom, or she doesn't just freeze to death. Or both. And then, yeah, so Superman frees himself and he moves the moon out of orbit, which would fuck up the Earth's that would fuck up Earth, by the way. Anyway, there'd be a lot of fucking large effects that happen once that happened. But anyway, does that, so he blocks the sun, which that also would have a big effect on the fucking Earth. You're blocking the sun. I just... It's ridiculous. Like, oh my god. Oh shit. They block the sun with the moon. Anyway, okay. So he gets Nuclear Man, he takes Lacey back to Earth, drops Nuclear Man in like a power plant, and he becomes electrical power, so essentially dies. And I guess his energy helps with the electrical grid. Perry White gets alone. He gets the plant back. Superman arrests the Luthors. He takes Letty to like a boys' school, like an all-boys school, and then he arrests Lex. He throws him in prison. And then you get a Superman speech that you can't force peace, essentially. Which, oh man, the speech scene is pretty good. Like I said, there's moments in this movie. Obviously, there's a lot of shit, like the ridiculous scene I just told you about, where he's like fucking moving the moon in front of the sun. But yeah, Superman 4 it's a ride, man. It's a movie, but I can have fun with it, man. I can watch how ridiculous it is, and just like I said, I had a much more of a soft spot for it as a kid, but it's not it's a bad fun movie. Like I said, the absurdity of him moving the moon in front of the sun has always gotten me. Or when he flies, Nuclear Man takes Lacey into space and she somehow isn't fucking dead. The whole absurdity of Nuclear Man as a concept. Which, like, this is another thing I haven't even thought of this. You could have just repurposed this and had this just be Bizarro. Because essentially it is kind of Bizarro. It's made of Superman's DNA, but for some reason he becomes Radiation Man. Instead of, you could have just made this Bizarro. Like I said, like with Superman 3, instead of this random generic supercomputer, it could have just been Brainiac. This could have easily just been Bizarro. Because it essentially kind of was. It was built off Superman's DNA, so you could have just had it be Bizarro. But anyway, this movie's ridiculous. And Bizarro, at least, would kind of make more sense of having the attraction to Lacey, because if you're, like, granted it wasn't Lacey, but in a lot of other Superman media, he does kind of get enamored by Lois. And he wants to take her because he wants to be Superman in his mind. So at least that would kind of make sense. Versus what they do with Nuclear Man is just this random character. It just doesn't make sense as a villain anyway. But anyway, I have fun with how bad this movie is. You could just, like I said, you could just sit there and laugh at it. It obviously it's not objectively good, and obviously compared to like Man of Steel and some of the like the Dark Knight and some of the level of DC movies, even Batman Begins within a couple 2 years later, yeah, obviously it doesn't compare. But Superman 4, it's a memeable movie. You know, I had fun with it as a kid. Like, I can see, like, a kid liking this movie. Because if you're not, like, thinking about the plot too much and you just want to see Superman fly, and I remember as a kid, I think one of the reasons I was a bit more positive on it as a kid, because, oh, this is another movie where Superman's in, like, a fight. He's not just, like, he wasn't just not flying around like in Superman 3. He's actually punching things. Because the fight at the junkyard was kind of against himself, and it was more, he was Clark, he wasn't Superman. So to see him at least punch something, I was a bit more positive. But yeah, when you're as an adult, you can't help but notice the really bad plot, the absurdity. Like the absurdity of him just going into these countries and taking their nukes. Like, that's not how that works. Like, even Superman knows Superman wouldn't just be able to do that. One, let's be real, America wouldn't give up the nukes. And obviously these other countries aren't gonna do it. They're all gonna all just clap, but it was the 80s. You just kinda gotta let it roll with it. And I'll say this, between this and like another bad fourth movie in Jaws the Revenge, this is definitely better because at least I can laugh at it. I mean, I can kind of laugh at Jaws 4, but Jaws 4, there's just a middle portion where it just gets boring. I don't necessarily think this is boring. I'm not bored in this. I can just laugh. I laugh at the absurdity kind of both of them, but this one even more. It's almost like so borderline. I can almost say it's so bad it's good, you know? And that's probably what I might title this video. It's so bad it's good. So, anyway, tomorrow or Monday, I will be doing How to Train Your Dragon 2. And then next Friday, I'll try to figure out what else I'll do this week. Actually, no, I know I'm doing Tuesday. I think Tuesday I'm going to do Christmas Vacation, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. Gonna do that, since start getting to some of the Christmas movies, since I kind of was waiting till like maybe like the second week of December to start getting into some Christmas movies. I'm gonna do Scrooge the week after, try to figure out what Christmas, and obviously I'm gonna do the Santa with Muscles Hulk Hogan movie. My God, bro. So, and also, actually, no. I know what I might be doing Wednesday, because since it's technically be a bad movie Wednesday, I have a feeling it's gonna be a bad movie, but not objectively a bad movie. There's a movie that I never even heard of. It's called, I am not kidding you guys, Invisible Raptor, or The Invisible Raptor. As far as I could tell, I saw a trailer. It is literally an invisible raptor, and you just hear raptor sounds. And you got like some of the acting just looks memeable. And I'm like, you know what? It's my type of movie. So I'll watch it. So I'll probably watch it Wednesday. So I got something at least potentially for Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So, and then Friday. So I'll just figure out what I got to do for Thursday. But yeah, other than that, guys, Pin Down Podcast, subscribe to it. We will be back this week. Probably might be doing a SmackDown review this week. We'll see, but definitely gonna be recording something that's gonna be releasing on Saturday. So yeah, but other than that, guys, I am gonna wrap it here. All right, guys. Talk to y'all later.